I gave people all the stuff they really needed. Social Security checks, utility bills, TV guide.
I want a TV guidance counselor. TV guidance counselor. Staying up to watch all night, and everything's gonna be alright with my TV guidance counselor.
Hey everybody, welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I am Ken Reed, as always, your TV Guidance Counselor, here to talk about classic television using back issues of TV Guide magazine from my personal collection as the inspiration for our conversation. And this week's guest is a very, very funny guy. This is Geoff Tice. He is a Denver, Colorado-based comic. He has a new album out called Jokes with a G, because he spells Jeff with a G, Geoff, Tice. And for a long time, there's a comic artist named Jeff Darrow, who is very, very good if you're unfamiliar with him. But he spells it Geoff, and as a kid, I pronounced it Geoff. I really did. Did it out loud once at a comic store and was ridiculed because back in the late 80s, early 90s, comic book stores were purely in existence to ridicule young people. Anyway, that's a whole different thing. Jeff is a graphic designer, a very funny comic, and just a good dude. Had a great time talking to him. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Geoff Tice.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Geoff Tice, how are you, sir?
I'm doing so well, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. This, what a fun concept. It's a really great thing.
Oh, thank you so much. You're very welcome. This has been a year of Colorado. I think you're the third comic I've recorded with where they're actually in Colorado this year. I think it's the first, and I don't think I had any before that.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah, we're, I think one person decided to record an album and then start trying to get out and push their name out more. And then everyone was like, oh, I should do that too. And then we all just kind of followed suit. So
word travels fast. Well, because Denver kind of became Boston was always, and I say this as a compliment, the third tier comedy city.
Yes.
But in a good way, where it was people would kind of develop and get good before anyone cared. And then they'd come out and be really great and kind of different because they were sort of in a little vacuum and people would notice. And then we totally pissed that away. And Colorado kind of took that up. Austin, Atlanta, Portland, they kind of all really ran with it.
Yeah, I feel like there was a stretch where every major podcast host was pushing Comedy Works and the club in Denver so aggressively that we had this awesome influx of comics, and we've always had a great culture, and it's always been a great scene, super lucky, mostly because of the independent scene surrounding the club, and then also the club being supportive of the scene. The club's also very good about that. So yeah, we're super lucky. We've had, dude, ever since COVID, I'm sure you've seen it out there, this crazy influx of new comics. I met comics that started after COVID. I'm like, what is happening? It's and they're good. Some of them are really good. So,
but you also want to have an intervention for them. We're you had a chance to not have to do this. What are you doing?
All our brains changed. You didn't have to revert back to this. You could do something different.
You could have gone down a different path. You feel like some 60-year-old ex-gang member talking to some 17-year-old kid.
Grabbing him by the collar and be like, don't do this, son. Don't do it. It's
things are different now. Don't make the mistakes I did.
Be a streamer. Get on Twitch. Don't do this.
Get on that. Make big bucks. Because the TV Guide issue you picked here, which is, what are the dates here? Where are we? I think it's January? November, 1996.
November. Yep.
But I have the cover out, and it's because of the way I scanned it, that you see the back cover, and the back cover is "Come to Marlboro Country," and I just instantly thought of Colorado looking at this.
Hell yeah, it's the best. I got more excited going through. I didn't realize how excited I was going to get with the ads. So many of the ads make me so happy because they're either so tone deaf or they just come from just a whole nother. You don't realize 96. It's just a whole nother world away. And even the Marlboro Country, the Surgeon General's warning. All it says is smoke cigarette smoke contains carbon monoxide. Like that's all they had to put on there. Now it's like, it looks like a NASCAR with like a million disclaimers and stickers and like, don't do this, don't do this. So yeah.
Your baby will be an X-Men, but with not powers, just mutated. It'll be just bad. Because you're a graphic design guy, and I imagine that has to be fascinating because, like, you never in the moment really realize the trends as much. I guess maybe now because things move faster, but, you know, I remember growing up in the 90s and being like, 90s doesn't have like a thing like the 80s does.
Yeah.
Oh, it did.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. And then you cut to like every album cover having like the Courier font distressed tiny in the corner with like a paint splatter. And it's
crumpled
just like
up paper.
Super like, the skeuomorphic. Like it looks like an actual journal. Like they love that stuff. And that stuff's coming back. That's very funny. Obviously, like in all fashion as well, but design. A lot of the '90s stuff is coming back in a way that like talk about your punk posters before we started recording. That like Xeroxed, super layered, crunchy, like black and white, duotone, heavy typography. That's everywhere now. Every poster is really an evolution of that. And it's funny because people are like, it's new, it's fresh. It's like, you guys just didn't see punk posters. Just Google punk posters. That's all.
I mean, I imagine it's because you have a generation of people who didn't grow up with a physical thing. Yeah. You know, like they didn't have zines, magazines. They weren't getting handed a flyer. So things that have that vibe feel like really refreshing and wow.
Yeah. Anything you can make feel tactile and warm and not digital. I think there's been this huge push this is just a graphic design podcast now. That's
this is fascinating stuff.
Yeah, anything that just doesn't feel as like cold, like that digital coldness that comes with a lot of Photoshop and just design these days. So I think anything that has that grit and it feels like you want to touch it feels so good. People are drawn to it. And
nothing is worse than 99% of digital comedy show flyers. They always have a Shure 55 microphone, which I've never seen anyone use at a comedy show. There's always a red curtain, which I almost never see at a comedy show. No JPEG will be in the right aspect ratio.
No, or resolution.
Yep. Too many logos for too many things, most of which don't exist anymore. And also, if they do, it won't be the correct logo.
There's a Facebook page group called Bad Comedy Flyers, and I basically just scan it to make sure nothing I've ever made pops up on there.
I think you're good.
And then you see the stuff that pops up and you're like, I think I'm safe. I think we're good. Yeah. And it is exactly what you just outlined. It's so funny. There is like a template of how to make this offensive to anyone with accessibility issues.
5 fonts.
It's so fun.
Yeah. It's like, and I instantly thought of like the next ad in here is a 2-page spread of Plymouth cars.
Yep.
And it's 6 fun flavors, also sold separately. And it has it as a Plymouth fun pack. So it's like a toy. It actually looks like a Super Soaker box from the time.
It really does.
And man, the names of the cars and the fonts and logos are just ridiculous. And I forgot about the Plymouth Prowler.
Dude, I saw one 2 days ago. I saw a red, and it had a vanity plate that said Prowler with no O, like PRWL, I think ER or R. I totally forgot those existed too.
If people don't remember them, they were like, if a guy saw a PT Cruiser and was like, oh man, that's weak ass. I'm gonna have a badass PT Cruiser. And it's
dude,
like,
you're not gonna get any chicks with that. Check this one out. You're like, all right, man.
Prowler. Wow. Pretty amazing.
I love it.
On the cover we have Michael Jordan. Is that why you picked this one?
I did, yeah. I thought in my head, it's so funny because my gut reaction was, I'm a huge basketball fan, and I was like, 96 Jordan, the greatest, like one of the greatest years. They won the championship that year. Super fun to like just be excited about Michael Jordan. I love all that stuff. It's when I watched a lot of basketball growing up was in 96 and in the early 90s or just in the 90s. And then once I started going through the programming for primetime, I got even more excited because there's so much fun, weird stuff going on, and which we'll get to, but it's fun.
This is Space Jam era Michael Jordan. So, also, one more design note before we move on. I have a thought that the ugliest period for graphic design
Yes.
is 1999 to 2006.
Dude, that's
the
hilarious.
Monster Energy drink new metal era.
Yep. Which is funny because there are, again, everything coming back in style. There are really famous artists right now, like Charlie XCX. Katy Perry is like totally ripping that off right now. And it's so funny. Like they're like, oh, like Y2K design aesthetic and feel is so hip right now. And it's brutal, like heavy
tribal tattoos.
Yeah, shiny gradients with like massive, heavy drop shadows. It looks so bad. But
no.
Yeah,
Looks like
it's fun to do it ironically, but when you try to do it in earnest, it breaks down pretty quick.
I am no fan of Queensryche, and I'm going to come right out and say it, but they had an album out around that time that might be the worst album cover I've ever seen, and it's like just their logo. And it looks like it's not the right size JPEG that they've blown up about 100 times too big. It wouldn't even pass muster as like a mock-up on a Disney sitcom for like a band's album that wasn't even going to be in a close-up.
Yep. Yeah, it looks like an album that is for someone in a movie. It's like a fake album in a real movie that the character's in a band.
Yes. I'm like, no, we're not going to do a close-up. They won't notice. I'm like, I don't know. That's a little bit better than this. There's also an ad for Vicks 44 that I don't think is supposed to be funny.
Dude, what is going on? I thought that was okay. So it says now is not the time for his cough medicine to wear off while he's in the middle of a hectic, blurry surgery happening. My first thought was, I was like, is this another cigarette, like tobacco commercial? And then I was like, wait, it's Vicks? What's happening? And then I was like, is this basically like lean? Are they saying it's like got codeine in it and it'll knock you out? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, is it the guy performing the surgery or the guy getting the surgery? Because it's a different ad.
Yeah, true. That's so funny. I didn't even think about it that way. I literally took it as it'll basically put you in a coma.
Yeah, take Vicks and they can do major surgery on you and you won't even notice. It'll be great.
Yeah. Damn, that's wild.
Yeah. Then we have a thing in here about CBS This Morning's Eleanor Mondale, who I believe is Walter Mondale's daughter. And she was hosting everything for a while. She had a show on E! I have not looked her up, but she seems to have completely dropped off the face of the earth. Like, she pops up in stuff so much in like a 2-year period and then gone.
Yeah, fascinating. I wonder what she's up to. Conventions for E! Oh, wow. She was covering politics and the conventions, the Democratic and Republican for E! Can't imagine that hard-hitting.
I mean, these days doesn't seem weird at this point. I'd appreciate E! Covering it. It would be at least a little more honest.
True. At least
what are you wearing?
Exactly. They start with, what are these shoes? Like, great.
Yeah. Do a commercial. Then there's an Ask TV Guide about the show It's About Time, which is one of the worst shows I've ever seen in my life. It's sort of legendarily bad. And I always like these Ask TV Guide things because in a pre-internet world, although it was around in 96, there were so many shows like this that people would be like, this can't be a real thing, but I remember this. And this was like, you had to write a letter to TV Guide and hope they answered. It was the only way you could figure it out.
That's so funny. Yeah, I've never even heard of It's About Time. CBS.
Oh, it's bad.
It looks brutal.
Yeah, so for people that don't know, it's Sherwood Schwartz, I believe, and it's about it's basically Planet of the Apes. So these astronauts go into space, and when they come back down, they're in caveman times.
Great.
And it's Joey Ross from Car 54, Where Are You?, who was hilariously funny on that show, but only because the writers knew what to do for him, and he is unwatchable in the show. It is real bad.
The inspiration for Interstellar. You go away, you come back in a different time. Wow.
Real bad.
Funny.
There's an ad for Ron Howard because he's a movie buff, U.S. satellite broadcasting. Did you guys have cable at this time?
No. So here's the thing about this podcast where my insecurity creeps in real heavy is I grew up in Australia. I lived in Australia from when I was 4 to when I was 12, and we only had 2 channels, and it was one of them would be like cricket all the time, and the other would just be like local news. And so I have these massive pop culture blind spots from when I was little. Like I've never seen Boy Meets World, especially the stuff that's like from my generation growing up. I missed all of it. So a lot of my picks are basketball's on. Let's watch that.
Or wish fulfillment. So you probably had like ABC and like Channel 10. Are those the two?
Totally. That's exactly it. Yep.
And so you watching Neighbors and Home and Away.
Yep, and Home Improvement and Friends were the two major U.S. sitcoms that replayed a lot in Australia.
Are your parents from there? What were you doing there?
Yeah, so my dad is a preacher, and the church he was affiliated with had a presence in Australia.
Gotcha.
Super random, but yeah, the church was based out of Northern Ireland. My dad's not Australian or Northern Irish, but he's American and ended up in Australia preaching the good word to the Australians. So, yeah, man, grew up doing that.
You're there right after America's short-lived obsession with Australia as well. That it sounds like it's about 2 or 3 years after, where we were getting tons of Australia stuff and Australian people kind of being imported and shoved in our shows like Jocko. And which everyone Google Jocko's I'm an Individual. Wow, what a music video that is. But I was obsessed. There was an Australian show, I think it was a Channel 10 show called Beyond 2000.
Yeah, I don't know if I saw it.
It was a show where they were like, in the future, this car, they would show you like a Pontiac Prowler or whatever.
Whoa.
And be like,
dude.
here's a future car.
Whoa, the title logo I totally remember, but nothing about the show. That's so funny. The Australian show that I used to watch, I used to get away with watching. I wasn't allowed to watch it, but it was called Round the Twist, and it was just kind of this, super
strange things happen. Are you going round the twist?
No, that's great. Yeah, Round the Twist was amazing. And then later, when I moved, I've been here for 24 years. We moved in 2000, so all that to say, one of the greatest Australian shows of all time is Summer Heights High with
Yes.
Yeah, and so that one came out, and that was like really nostalgic for me because that was very similar to my primary school and like my education early on. So, that's
what's his name, Chris. Chris, I can't think of his name.
Yeah, what is his name?
Because that got over. Your HBO showed that for a bit, and then he did a show before that called like People Like Us or something. It was like for Australian of the Year. Yeah. And then he did a show after that just called Angry Boys that I just
Angry
couldn't
Boys
finish.
was yeah.
Got rough.
Chris Lilly.
Yes.
Chris Lilly.
So, that the Summer Heights High was the best thing he did that I've seen. Loved
my
it.
favorite. Yeah.
I had John Safran on last year, if you know who he is.
No.
He was on the Australian version of Race Around the World, and then he had a bunch of shows in Australia. It was sort of Daily Show-ish type weird stuff about various things.
That's cool.
Then we get an article in here about the Clueless TV show, which is one of the rare TV shows based on a movie that I think is as good as, if not better than the movie.
Yeah. Let's see.
And a review of Spin City, which I put in my top 3 most underrated sitcoms of the 90s.
Dude, later in I don't know where it pops up, but when they have quotable moments from the week, they have a extremely progressive quote from Spin City that I was like, whoa, really? I was like, that was because I probably caught 5 episodes of Spin City in my life. And I was like, interesting. I had no idea that was baked into the writing. I was like, that's great.
Oh, yeah. It was very smart. It was a great show. Then speaking of shows based off movies, I totally forgot, A, about this movie, and B, about the TV show based on it. There's an article about Annie Potts in here, who everybody loves Annie Potts, and she's starring in the TV version of Dangerous Minds in the Michelle Pfeiffer role.
Oh, weird. Oh, yeah. They and it starts off with like, everyone's sick of talking about Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
If Annie Potts had her way, she wouldn't have to talk incessantly about Pfeiffer. But that's one of those movies that here was just massively popular exclusively because of the soundtrack, and not a single person mentions it, or you probably have difficulty finding anyone who's seen it now. It's like, no
Seriously?
way.
Yeah. It's so funny to go from like all these Michael Jordan centric articles right into Annie Potts and about this show. And I was like, I have no idea. I was like, this one is. I was like, I was like, I know about Michael Jordan. I was like, I don't know. Sorry.
But the articles are actually very well written. Like, that's always a surprise to people who've never really looked at a TV guide, because it's like they spent money and paid journalists.
Yeah. People used to dedicate their life to this. It used to be. Absolutely.
Have you ever seen Pro Stars, the Michael Jordan cartoon?
I have not. No.
Oh, wow. It's a cartoon. 1992, I think. It's Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, and Bo Jackson.
I love that.
They basically travel around, and it's Scooby-Doo.
That's the best.
But it's not ironic in any way.
I have seen a lot of clips of this. I've never actually seen. It's so funny how things are in my brain. I'm like, I don't know where this is from. And then you say that, I Google it. I'm like, I've seen so many memes with these guys. And
I am not a sports guy, and I, grew up in Boston here, so like officially had to be into the Celtics regardless, or would be murdered in the streets.
Yep.
But at this time, I had a Michael Jordan sleeping bag because it was on clearance. So I got it for Christmas one year, and it was just like, okay, I guess I like Michael Jordan, and I'm going to sleep inside him.
You're like, sure. Wait, what did it look like? What did it look like? His body?
No, it was. So speaking of graphic design, it was that sort of 90s Chicago Bulls, like red with like black kind of like spatter, like paint spatter, kind of like tire track kind of thing looking over it. And he was like dunking, and it was just all red. Yeah, it was bad.
I love that. I love it. I love it. That sounds amazing. That's so funny. Yeah, I'm gonna go watch this Pro Stars. This looks right up my alley.
I'd be curious to hear what you think. It's very interesting. Yeah. Then we get a thing about Jane Seymour in here. Only mention her because she's been on the show. And a legal notice, which you don't see these often, but this one is the Dow Corning bankruptcy. And I always think of Dow Corning as like Corningware, like the like pots and pans. But this says, women who have ever had breast implants may need to act now to preserve their rights. It's your rights now and in the future. You must file a claim by January 15th, 1997. And this is about like if your breast implants caused an issue. Which the funniest thing is, even this ad, which is really like matter of fact, black and white text, it's obviously like a serious subject. They even led with sex, because the third bullet, it says persons with other implants such as hip, knee, joint, toe, chin, nasal. Like it's not even.
It's
like
not.
It's so many things.
To boobs. Yeah. It's so funny. I love the idea of someone being like, oh no, people are having issues with their breast implants, but my toe joint really needs some help. These are definitely not the people. Oh wait, no, these are the people for me. Nice. Okay, good.
Right. Or like, look, these toe joint people aren't looking at the ads we put out. We're going to have to sex it up a little bit so they take a look at what we need them to.
To the Mad Men room, and he's just like, okay, listen, we're going to start with boobs, and then we'll go from there. Like, all right.
Silicone. What else? I got it. My
That's
God.
Great.
So let's jump in here. What'd you do on Saturday?
All right, let me pull this up. I've been Googling. All my tabs are now Michael Jordan cartoons.
Government won't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Also, one small little thing. The Fabergé egg music box cracked me up. I was like, oh, is this like the original collector coin, like that you catch on the news?
These are in every issue. There's garbage like this. This is from the Franklin Mint, the House of Fabergé musical box. Did you see how much it cost?
Was it $60 or?
They did this on purpose. They write attractively priced at $69.
That's very funny. Him and the breast guy. Those guys are again starting with sex. It's like, hey, stop being so horny in the TV guide, folks.
That price is so attractive.
Chill out. All right, yeah. Saturday evening. Man. Okay, so it's November 2nd, Saturday evening. So this is leading into prime time. My wife and I still do this every single night of the week, which is funny that it's on Saturday here, but we watch Jeopardy every night. So we're huge Jeopardy fans. The fact that it was on that day, we're watching it. 7:30 leading into our prime time. Then, see, a bummer. The Celtics and the Bucks are on Channel 38. So I was like, well, that's probably what we're going to actually watch. Like on a Saturday night, I'm watching the whole game throughout prime time. But during commercial breaks, 100% I will be clicking over to Fawlty Towers. Talk about a British show that was pumped into Australia, obviously, because of the Commonwealth. And yeah, we grew up with, so much John Cleese. So Celtics Bucks happening as kind of background music, and then Fawlty Towers with John Cleese popping in here and there. So that's probably what we're doing most of prime time.
And that show is timeless. Like, that show is the blueprint for like every late 2000s bad person as the lead sitcom.
Yes.
But
yes.
40 years before it.
Yes. Yeah, just like a difficult, annoying, not even really that likable, not a lot of redeeming, but just fun, silly. It was great. Yeah, that was a show that really got me when I was little.
If people at home are playing TV Guidance Counselor Bingo, you're about to get a square. I got to spend Valentine's Day 2020 all day with John Cleese.
No way. How'd that happen?
It was awesome. There was a company, and this was pre-COVID, they had this idea to do like virtual sort of Comic-Con type meet and greets. And so this one was one they did with John Cleese, and like the idea was like I was behind the camera interviewing him and interviewed him for like 6 hours, and then they edited it down to like 45 minutes, and it was supposed to be like a Q&A you'd watch at a con, and people bought tickets for like $5 or something like that. But it was awesome. I just got so much good, so many good stories out of him. And then the half hour they cut out so much of the best stuff because they just wanted kind of like Harry Potter, which I get, but man, he had such good stuff.
Yeah.
And Fawlty Towers, he was so humble about his contribution and really, really, really complimentary about Connie Booth.
Cool.
When, has no need to be.
Right. When he's in a position to, totally. That's awesome. 6 hours for real?
Yeah.
Like you talked, that's crazy. Also, that's just a long day. It
was a long day, and he was so nice, and the stories were him being on the Muppet Show, like so many great stories.
Yeah.
I will mention, because I also bring it up all the time, Baywatch Nights is on at 7, and this is the second season where it became X-Files. And this show description, so keep in mind, Baywatch, there's no way that didn't air in Australia.
We 100% got Baywatch. Yeah.
So Baywatch Nights was a spin-off where Mitch started a detective agency, right? So that was season 1. He starts a detective agency, and it was just like a straight up kind of like Magnum type show. Huge bomb. No one cares. But because Baywatch was so popular, a lot of places, they basically sold 2 seasons of the show before it even started. So for the second season, they revamped it and they literally made it X-Files. So he's not just a detective. Now he investigates supernatural things.
Whoa, that's crazy.
And it's in the Baywatch universe. So this is all supposed to be happening while the regular Baywatch stuff is happening. So in this particular episode, it says, Ryan, Angie Harmon, must fight for her own soul when she inadvertently invokes the devil himself while investigating murders that bear the mark of an occult-obsessed serial killer.
Oh, man. Perfect. Yeah. It's so fun to think about, someone who's like, that's my favorite show of all time, and then someone who's like, I'm just going to watch the Celtics and the Bucks. That's just different universes.
But this is when the Celtics, no one cared about them, right? This was kind of after Larry Bird left and all this, from 93 to 2000, it was just oh, they're the worst. No one gives a shit.
Yeah, it was such a hard time because they just, you're living in Jordan's world. Everything was Jordan's world, and it was everything. He, that's the height. It's the height of it. He had just come back a year before from the
baseball.
I was going to say the suspension for gambling and his dad being murdered for his gambling debts, but
we call that baseball here.
Let's not get into that part of it.
When you get suspended from your job for gambling and your dad is murdered, we call it baseball.
Yeah. We say the White Sox is what we call it. Yeah. It's that's a whole nother, talk about a whole nother podcast, a different detective podcast. But that's why I got excited about this issue, because it was so the height of Jordan, and if you wanted to sell anything, you just put his face on it, and that's how it went.
How weird is just the fact that Space Jam was a thing?
It's crazy that it got greenlit, that it worked out. There's really famous stories about him having to film at night or like after and he would go to practice and like do games, and he was still fully training. And then they talk about it in The Last Dance, that big massive docuseries that came out during COVID about the Bulls, and everyone was like shocked to find out that Michael Jordan's an asshole, and everyone was like, how did you not know? Like,
of course he is. Like, he
like
would have been in way more movies. He has no, if you hear him talk, he's an asshole.
He's Neil Brennan has a great, I think his newest special talks about it, but anyone who's ever been at that level of anything, especially sports, are absolute psychopaths. Like it takes a truly broken person to be that good at something and then be so singular. And then, Jordan is the biggest example of that. And so it makes me laugh because all of these culture references and all these things that he did outside of basketball, where he was in, all the Looney Tunes partnerships, I was going to say Spike Jones. The
Spike Lee commercials.
Spike Lee commercials with, Mars and Marvin the Martian. Like everything he did was so likable and fun. And he was just this like kind of country bumpkin kid who then was thrust into being the greatest in the world with that, like, I'm a huge prick, but I can't let people know that yet. And so it just was an amazing PR shift to keep him, not that he was like out here like truly being an asshole. He just was overly competitive. Sure. That's all.
Yeah. He was single-minded and is like,
not a bad guy, just just wanted to win. So it just makes me laugh because then you put that up against a lot of like athletes these days where a lot of them, like, Space Jam 2 with LeBron, like they have so much weight on their shoulders now to be likable and to be everything that the brands want them to be. And they have to kind of sports wash their personalities through movies and culture and all this stuff now.
Which is weird because I don't think people recognize how unusual like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was.
Yes.
Because he's so smart and likable and a good guy, and he could be in anything and like fit in, but also be like super watchable. And he showed up in so much stuff that was not the norm for athletes. Like that was so unusual, especially basketball. You get football players sometimes, but like Jim Brown but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was like unheard of to be like that likable and come across that well in like pop culture stuff. And he came up in a lot of stuff. And I think people probably take that for granted now when they see him and stuff.
I think so. And then also Kareem just recently started writing. What did he do?
Movie reviews, I think.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Something popped up recently that I was like, wait, what is he doing? And I was so blown away by it. And it was like movie reviews. And they're really good and smart. Yeah. And like, he's great.
Yeah.
He rocks. I love that so much.
I love him.
That's so fun.
Before we move on to Sunday, I do want to mention Dark Skies is on, which is kind of a great lost show. So 96, we are in the shadow of X-Files. And so there's always a big show that all the networks are blindsided by. And so they don't understand what made it popular. So they greenlit a bunch of shows they think will be just like it. And most of them are terrible, but you always get some really interesting stuff in there because executives don't know anything. And one of them was Dark Skies. And the premise of this show, it was kind of like Mad Men X-Files. So it takes place in the 60s. There's basically Mulder and Scully, but they're like, 60s investigators. It takes place in Las Vegas because it's the Area 51. But they would intersperse it with real historical events, kind of like in Forrest Gump.
Yep.
So there's like an episode where aliens have taken over the Ed Sullivan Show the night the Beatles are going to be on it. And they're trying to like brainwash. It's really fascinating and interesting show. And no one cares about it. Like it just doesn't re-air. It's not streaming. And I feel like it would be like a huge hit now. Like in this episode, Howard Hughes is in it. Like a guy playing Howard Hughes. What a weird show.
How much of these shows have you seen like full seasons of? Like your knowledge is so deep of this stuff. No, it's great. I mean, I have my own, exactly. We started talking about graphic design and typography and I get weird about that real quick. And so I totally get it. We all have our thing. I'm fascinated by this.
Usually the genre shows, especially because horror sci-fi shows for sure. This around 96 is probably when I started doing some other stuff other than sitting around my house and watching TV all the time. So I was like in a punk band at this time. So it starts to trail off a little bit. But I would say from like 88 to 97, everything.
God, I mean, that's great. That's great.
And then since I've been doing the show, I've gone back and revisited or like kind of filled in some holes and stuff. I've been pleasantly surprised. A lot of shows are pretty amazing.
That's cool.
Then this is also a huge milestone in the show Cops this very night. So November 2nd, 1996. They're in Boston. And in this episode, a guy carrying a knife gets shot by cops on the show.
Whoa.
And it was the first time that it ever happened. That show had started in 87, so it'd been on almost 10 years. And it took Boston to have you see a guy get shot and killed on Cops. And it was a big controversy because people were like, you know, what does this come to? We don't want to see this kind of thing on TV. Like, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And look where we are now.
We're trying to see Pamela Anderson. We don't want to see people getting shot.
We want to see some
in front of a Dunkin' Donuts.
Going, give me the fucking regular. Fire. And on Hercules, the legendary Journeys that night, which not a big Kevin Sorbo fan, but I bring it up because that episode, former guest of the show, Cynthia Rothrock is in playing Enforcer 2. So I feel like I need to mention that. And last thing I'll mention for Saturday, the show Profiler, which was about an FBI profiler. Not a great show, but it has the lamest rip from the headlines plotline on this episode because this was in the Unabomber era. And she's up against a character called the Eco Bomber. And it says, can she stop the Eco Bomber and his bombs?
And the thing that he does?
Yeah.
Great.
We got a Unabomber at home. It's the Eco Bomber.
I love that so much.
Man, so Sunday, what are you doing?
Awesome Sunday. So listen, a couple of these are real boring, but we're going straight into Sunday Night Football for 49ers and Saints. If we're doing the actual, what I'm actually doing, that's what we're doing. But that being said, I'm trying to find, This is
a Winter Olympics year, I think, too, because ice skating is on all the channels. Not Olympic ice skating, but it was like everyone was into ice skating that year.
Yeah, it was like the championships leading up to. And then, so whatever. Football, boring, great. But then also it said this was the network broadcast debut of Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. So
from 94.
Definitely
took 2 years.
At that time, I would have probably been putting on Ace Ventura. And then my favorite part about Sunday is on page... I'm not sure exactly what page it is, but there is there's an ad for a show called Mary and Tim. And if you go down, it's insane. Also there's an American Journal one next to it that's super aggressive that we don't need to talk about
Touched
O.J.
by an
Simpson.
Angel. Oh my God. The OJ. Jesus.
Dude,
okay, I see Mary and Tim with...
That one's wild. But then, the Mary and Tim goes, so just the little, the description. She was a woman who was slow to love. He was a young man who was slow to learn.
Oh my God.
You don't have to be perfect to find the perfect love. And then the picture is him trying to read a book and she's staring at him like, can you not read?
And it's Candace Bergen. And I think the worst part here, and this is a graphic design thing, her name Mary is written in like script, but then Tim is like scribbled in bad crayon.
Yeah.
So this is a movie. This is a made-for-TV movie. Candace Bergen and Thomas McCarthy star in this sensitive story about the relationship between a 40-something career woman and a mild-mannered, mentally impaired young man.
Oh no,
that's not. I don't think you're allowed to do that.
I don't think so. Dude, it caught me off guard. So I was like, wait, what is this? And then, it's like the design of it. It looks super Hallmark movie with like, it just, man, it's beautiful.
That's
all of it. Top to
all
bottom.
kinds of wrong.
Insane.
You know, it's on Fox. They're showing, it says nonstop Fox. This ain't no teddy bear. When animals attack 2 contains real life footage of actual attacks. Oh, you wonder why we're so screwed now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not hard to know how we got here.
And the WB in all their ads, it says, WB, your official Space Jam station.
Oh, I love that. They're just putting all their eggs, like, just watch Space Jam. Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan.
Oh, man. If any listeners have seen Mary and Tim, let us know. I have no intention of ever seeing this movie.
That is
oh,
wild.
my God. Poor Candace Bergen.
Yeah. That's insane.
I think that's more cringe than the OJ thing or the other.
I mean, the OJ one's insane.
I mean, that's, yeah.
It's crazy.
I can't even repeat it. There's also a made-for-TV movie starring Alyssa Milano and Cameron Bancroft called To Brave Alaska. Abandoned in the wilderness. No food, no shelter, no way out.
It's incredible. That's a shout out to that 90s, the abandoned in the wilderness, no food, no shelter, no way out. Shout out to that Courier font, like distressed. Like that's the font of the 90s.
And it's a black
100%.
and white photo, but when I look at it, it looks like they're in neon camouflage. Like I just know it's neon colors, like in case you have to be camouflaged in a
100%.
paint explosion.
That's so good. Oh, yeah. Everything. It's so fascinating to see the design of these ads because then it immediately gives you a point of reference for like every Tim and Eric thing that they've done aesthetically. Like it all comes from this. You're like, oh, this is where they get the picture in picture and the floating heads popping in and out. It's like, it's all a language from a past life and it crushes.
There's a
so
show
good.
on at 9 that I've never heard of, and it's a syndicated action show. And I only look at it because of the ad, and it looks like a ripoff of the show Renegade with Lorenzo Lamas, but it's called 2, and the W has faces on either side because it's a show about basically if Renegade was 2 identical twins. And it says, a face like this could get a guy killed. When his twin rips off a team of terrorists, Gus will have to pay for it with his life. It says 2 identical twins, inescapable adventure.
I want to reboot with the Sklar brothers.
Or the
Let's get those
Olsen
guys
twins.
on it. Yeah, true.
Wow,
Be
what
perfect.
a dumb, high concept, stupid show.
That's wild.
2's probably my
so
favorite
wild.
movie, favorite TV show of all time. Monday, what are you doing?
All right, Monday. So we're kicking off the work week. Again, let's just get boring. Monday Night Football is what we're actually watching. Broncos versus Raiders. Being a Denver person out in Colorado, that used to be a huge rivalry. And it's in Oakland, so we're getting fired up. We're getting hammered. I'm very young, so I'm 10 years old at the time, so I'm not getting hammered. But
You're getting hammered
let's-
emotionally.
or 8. Let's go with that. Yeah, emotionally. Yeah, we're getting fired up. We're yelling. As also coming from a family that does not watch sports, I'm the only one. My mom is kind of into sports, so it's like me and my mom watching football probably. And then, but the true headliner here, besides the Broncos covering primetime, would be Hey Arnold. Hey Arnold is just, I mean, it's crushing it. That's something that I found. That was something that I watched later in life when we moved to America. I watched a ton of Hey Arnold right when I moved here. So like late 90s, early 2000s. And yeah, man. Hey
So
Arnold.
smart,
all
funny,
night long.
like weirdly poignant and sad, sort of sports related because his head's shaped like a football. But it's
Yeah. They're playing
it was in
stickball
that
with
second
yeah.
wave of Nicktoons where the first wave of Nicktoons was Doug, Rugrats, and Ren and Stimpy. And the second wave was had a little more subtlety to it. So Hey Arnold had more in common with Doug, but was still like a little edgier. It wasn't the sort of gross out thing where like Rocko's Modern Life, which was the second wave, and Our Real Monsters were kind of had the more gross out thing.
yeah.
But Hey Arnold was like the sensitive show.
Yeah, I loved that side of things, the emotional side of things. I think Rocco's Modern Life was definitely the itch, I would scratch with like the grossness and the goofy because Ren and Stimpy was way too far for me at the time. Like that was setting the curve
don't think it
on a
was just
different
you.
level. But yeah, Hey Arnold was I don't
I think that's why they pulled it back with the
society in
second wave.
general.
It was like much like more sanitized, like Real Monsters. Like they were much more sanitized. They learned their lesson.
Yeah, it's so fascinating too, like how we consume and how we catch pieces of pop culture, like just in GIFs. Every once in a while, you'll catch like a Ren and Stimpy GIF, and you're like,
Yep.
they did this? And then you go back and watch it, and you're like,
Yep, the
oh,
rubber
they
nipple
totally did
salesman
this.
that
This is
pops up
wild.
as a GIF often. Call the police.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, the scratch in the eye, like peeling the eye open and get
There's
so much.
There's an ad
So-
on page 80 of the PDF on the Monday night, and it is for UPN's lineup. And there's at least one thing that will drive you insane as a graphic designer here that I think. What do you think it is?
Oh, let me pull up. Let me see. Get these 80 of the PDF. I am on 77, 78, 79, 80. Okay. Oh, boy. Dude, that is hilarious. Okay, so we have UPN pumps up the laughs with 2 big hours of back-to-back comedy. It's a whole night of cool comedy guaranteed to lift your spirits. And then it's 4 dudes with their bodybuilder bodies holding signs, all photoshopped with different heads on them from the different shows of the sign that they're holding. That's a terrible description. But yeah, we have LL Cool J and Alfonso Ribeiro, shout out to my middle name, Carlton, in the house. We have Malcolm and Eddie, Good Behavior, and Sparks. Dude, this looks
so. First of
insane.
all, this is like I don't think a computer was involved here. This is like a true paste up. And they're all the same body.
So
they didn't even bother to get a different muscle, but they're all the same body. And Malcolm Jamal Warner's head is completely not on there right. It's like tilted.
Yeah, he's
like that's not how necks work.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and Miguel Nunez, his chin is completely meshing into his neck, like he just has a full.
They've put the co-stars. It's supposed to look like they're behind them, but it looks like they're like little devil angels on their shoulders instead.
Oh yeah, Eddie Griffin.
Yeah,
dude,
this is one
crazy.
of the best worst ads I've ever seen. Like this could be a comedy show flyer.
Whew. It really, I mean, that really does look like. So, I mean, if you throw a like you said, an old school microphone on fire in the middle of this, and you got 4 hosts of a terrible, terrible show out in Ontario, California.
And it's got like a middle school picture day background thing going on.
Yeah, like the sketch filter in Photoshop, which is like whatever the original. Yeah, this is like talk about Xerox. They probably just scanned something in and
that's enough. That makes you want to buy a van and have that airbrushed on the side. Guy's just a huge fan of the 1996 UPN comedy lineup.
Hey man, that's it, dude. He's a big UPN head. Hilarious. I didn't have cable even when we moved here. And so through middle school and high school, I still didn't have cable. So a lot of things I watched were UPN 20. I watched so much like Moesha, Sister, like just like the most ridiculous suburban white kid just crushing UPN 20 shows. I was like, these are great.
Something weird was going on in 96 because a lot of weird things were going on. But I just noticed on the next page, on that Monday night at 9, there's another made-for-TV movie. And this one stars Tiffany Amber Thiessen, and it's a movie called Buried Secrets. And it says, 2 souls, one body. Sometimes there are good reasons to be afraid of the dark. So again, we have like a dual, like, what is up with twins, 2 people, like.
Yep. And also a classic, like, hey, look at the design of the X-Files. Let's just copy that. Like this looks very X-Files-y. Very cool typography for the title, but the top is 100% just, it looks like an X-Files.
But the typography is kind of like
design.
Vaguely Egyptian for some reason. Like, I don't think that fits into the plot at all here. Yeah. So it's while renting a shore house in Maine with her recently widowed mother, a young woman played by Tiffany Amber Thiessen is visited by the ghost of the former owner's daughter. So the fact that Tim Matheson is in this and that it's in Maine, I just have to imagine this is just like a horrific Stephen King ripoff.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, this is fun. I love this stuff.
So that's Monday. What about Tuesday?
Tuesday. So I didn't know this when I picked this week. I just got excited because of Michael Jordan. But Tuesday, November 5th, 1996 was the night Bill Clinton was elected as president for his second term. So we're watching election coverage is what's going on. We're watching election coverage. I started going through and I was like, wait, what the hell? Why is it election coverage? And then I Googled, I was like, oh yeah, Bill Clinton. Like that's the day. So fascinating that this popped up. I'm a huge, I say history fan. I wouldn't say buff. fan. I don't have the knowledge, but I really enjoy it. And so I love that this popped up.
And it's always fascinating to me when there are huge events like that at this time to see what the networks bother to counter program with, right? Because they know who's going to be glued to the TV and who's not going to care. So like UPN's like, awesome. We got the kids tonight, guys. We're going to show Moesha, Homeboys in Outer Space and Sparks, and we're going to kill it because everyone else is going to be watching the election returns. And then every other channel is just put on like a rerun of a movie. Like someone's showing Lethal Weapon, there's someone showing Beethoven. Yeah.
Beethoven.
Like, look, no one's watching it. Bravo got a little bit political and showed Kafka. And then HBO America Undercover is premiering Autopsy 3, Voices from the Grave.
Nice. Yeah, and then MTV2 dropping The Real World.
Yep.
And Baywatch later on in prime time. And then oh, the other one that made me laugh was the Strongest Man competition, also on.
Oh, on ESPN?
Yeah, the Lakers or Knicks are playing, and then World's Strongest Man competition. So if you didn't want to watch two guys go at it in the election, you'd be like, look at all these big men throw rocks around. This is more fun.
I used to love those because it was always just like complete freaks, and the things they would have them do were unnecessarily complicated.
Yes.
It would be like, you don't just have to run with a heavy thing. It has to be a refrigerator and it's plugged in. Like, it would just be like a weird, like they used to do a thing called the girly squats, and they had this like giant plexiglass platform, and they would put more and more girls on top of it, and they had to squat them. It was just like, what are you doing?
It's just like 350-pound like dudes from Iceland.
Yeah, no neck.
Like they're all like Nordic and Scandinavian.
Their heads coming out of in between their pecs. Like they look like Ram Man.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Oof. So Clinton was reelected that night for his second, and he signed one of the worst pieces of legislation of all time in 1996, the Telecommunications Act of 1996, that has continued to fuck us over to this day.
God damn it, Bill.
That was a
that's tough.
Deregulation act that allowed stations to own as many stations in one market as they wanted, television and radio and billboards. So it's why like two companies own everything now. It also gave away the HD band of broadcasting for free to studios and networks, which the only senator who complained about it was John McCain, actually, because for regular over-the-air TV, you had to pay for a license. Like, I'm ABC, I have to buy, Channel 5 or whatever. But the HD, they just gave it to them. And John McCain had this speech on the floor where he was like, if we just gave away $2 billion worth of conservation land that belongs to taxpayers to private businesses, like no one would stand for it. It's like, that's what we're doing. And nobody cared.
Everyone's like, hey, man, shut up.
Yeah, no one cares about this HD thing. It's just really interesting in hindsight, like seeing how that sort of ended up. Because if you look, in 97 is when we get MSNBC, Fox News, and all those stations, all that stuff starts popping up because of that act. It's
interesting.
Weird time.
Well, that's funny. That affects my life directly because I'm currently working for a streaming platform that is owned by a broadcast network that is owned by a massive telecommunications.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, who is... we're getting notes from people 3 companies away.
Yeah.
And we're like, wait, who is this? We're like, why are we getting notes from this person?
Right, corporate synergy. That's what they used to call it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oof.
It's layered.
Man.
Yeah, it's tough.
So that's Wednesday. What are we doing Thursday?
Thursday, we are on to... Thursday's fun. So that was... No, sorry, that was...
Oh, did you even tell me Wednesday, or did I just go on a rant?
Wednesdays, we can probably skip Wednesday pretty quick because we're watching the Bulls and Heat because Michael Jordan is in prime time. But I tried not to be completely boring. The other amazing show that I loved and I think I would be watching on Sunday at 8:30 would be Third Rock from the Sun. That one's popping up. Just it's the greatest. Such a feel-good show.
That's a show I missed and I haven't revisited. And at the time, it seemed too silly for me. But so many people on this show have like great things to say about it and loved it. I feel like I need to go back and watch it.
Yeah, I just remember loving it. I don't remember like tons of the specifics of like why I loved it, but truly, truly great. And the other thing that made me laugh was, God damn it, what's the main guy's name? Not just
John Lithgow.
What's the other guy? Lithgow. Yeah. From now just the Trinity Killer from Dexter.
Yeah.
To have an arc to go from those types of shows and be like a sitcom. Same with what Cranston did, going from Malcolm in the Middle to then being this like harrowing character on prestige television. But yeah, I just remember when he popped up on Dexter, everyone was like, what? And then he just played it perfectly. He was super creepy. It was so good.
Well, it's funny that like comedic actors, like very good comedic actors, can almost all universally go real dark and do heavy drama, like not missing a beat. Because it's like, for a wide variety of reasons, the other stuff doesn't tend to go the other way. Like dramatic actors can all do comedy.
Be chill, yeah. I think Jim Gaffigan has one of my favorite quotes about comedians, especially because it came from Jim Gaffigan. But he goes, "We're comedians." He's like, "We're all furious." It's like it's all right there under the surface. He's like, whether your content is about Hot Pockets or not, he's like, we're all furious. And I was like, got it. So you can, to see comedians go dark even when they're not, you can feel it for sure.
My favorite turn of that is Albert Brooks in Drive.
Oh, really?
Oh my! If you haven't seen it, it is.
I haven't seen it.
Especially if you're an Albert Brooks fan and you love his comedy, see Drive. I won't ruin it for you, but he is unbelievably good.
Oh, I will. I do like Albert Brooks. Yes.
Townies is on that night. I bring it up. It aired for less than a season. This was ABC's sort of attempt to do a Friends type show. Took place in Gloucester, Mass. It was Molly Ringwald's sort of return to the spotlight after the Brat Pack years. Her and Jenna Elfman were on it, but it also had Bill Burr and Ron Livingston and whose name I forget from Gilmore Girls. But was this amazing cast, was a pretty funny show. Dana Gould was a writer on it.
Sweet.
There's some really good stuff on that show, and it's just kind of lost to time.
Yeah. I'm lying to you, by the way, about Drive. I just looked up. I was like, oh, of course. I thought it was a reference to an older Drive, not the
There's
Drive.
a movie that movie is sort of a remake on called The Driver. That's also really good, but Albert Brooks is, when he cuts Bryan Cranston's wrists in that thing, he's like, it's over. Just,
Dude, that movie, talk about the movie that's like, that has such a beautiful moment of everything just being normal and then not. In one moment, that movie just kicks off and it's so fun.
Yeah, that's a great movie. There's also a huge failure from Stephen Bochco, who was known for sort of cop dramas, but he did a sitcom that year. And this was like a cop sitcom called Public Morals. And it was like a lawyers and cops. Donald Logue is on it. It was not good. People did not like it. And it was a huge failure. And that's on Wednesday.
Oh, funny. All right.
Now we're on to Thursday.
Okay, so Thursday was a fun one because there was a couple of gaps in the programming, but Thursday for me was just playing the sitcom hits. So at 8, we're starting with Friends, 9 to Seinfeld, and then 10 to ER. And Friends was something we got in Australia. I grew up, and like Friends obviously was massively beloved, and I enjoyed Friends. And then Seinfeld is Seinfeld as a comedian. Seinfeld,
which probably didn't air that much in Australia. Because when I lived in England, no one really knew Seinfeld. It was kind of a cult show that didn't. But Friends was massive. But Seinfeld people were
Friends
like,
was
what
so
is
big. That? Yeah, how long did you live in England for?
All said and done, total probably almost 2 years.
Nice. Where in England?
In London.
Cool.
Yeah, I went to school at Goldsmiths. An art school. And I lived mostly in South London, so like early 2000s.
Cool. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I'm a big London fan. And then ER. ER was, again, a show that would come on after the shows we were allowed to watch. And if my parents had gone to bed or were gone, we could just catch as much of ER as we could catch before we were in trouble for watching ER. It was something we weren't allowed to watch, but it's nothing inherently bad.
Harrowing. Like,
yeah,
that's a show I loved. I watched it every week, and I always on the show call it very good, high quality television I never want to see again. Because it was just like, it was devastating. And this particular one, Green and Lewis help rescue a family injured in a collision between a truck and a van and transport them to County General via helicopter. But when the victims arrive, the tragedy escalates due to the inexperience and arrogance of an isolated nurse, played by Jenny O'Hara, insolent nurse, and an overconfident Benton. Eric LaSalle played such a dickhead on that show.
Yeah, that whole block of just pure I mean, like literally the greatest TV shows of all time in the Hall of Fame, to have them all just back to back at that time.
And
Super
how
fun.
unusual it was to have 4 sitcoms and then just a drama.
Yeah, a hardcore drama. Yep. So that's my Thursday. Thursday is all
And then
fun.
the final night of the week, Friday.
So on to
what we do.
Friday, keeping it consistent with what I'm actually probably doing, is Bulls versus Pistons, Michael Jordan versus the bad boy Pistons, who that would be, talk about an ER drama. That was the Pistons would just absolutely clobber them, beat them up. Famous for killing each other, which that would be a very fun game for a Friday night. But 2 other things that I got really excited about that I definitely would have tuned into is deep in the programming, Pro Karate Sabaki Challenge.
Yes.
So, and then I Googled some YouTube videos of it, and I was like, this is exactly what I would watch. It looks like found footage of karate tournaments. Like it's
Yeah, I did
So
martial arts. I don't
ridiculous.
even know what sabaki is.
no clue. And also pro karate sounds like someone's explaining karate, but they don't know what they're talking about. They're like, I don't know. It's like pro karate. Like they're really good at
They're
it.
not kids.
No
you know, it's
clue.
like just pro stuff.
Yeah, pro. Like they're all, they're on TV. They're great. They're pro karate. So that's really fun. And then the other one is Ernest Scared Stupid. So as we're like, just it's so funny that it's we're into November, but they're still like, let's just throw this Halloween movie on. Who cares?
Sure.
We're running it. Let's go.
Spooky season.
And so
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
kind of, this will sound like a crazy statement. That's the last great Ernest movie.
that's so funny.
The first
Hard opinions on it.
The first 3 Ernest movies are all very good. Like Ernest Goes to Camp is a fun movie. Ernest Saves Christmas is one of the best Christmas movies, like certainly of the 80s, 90s. And Ernest Scared Stupid is a great Halloween movie. It's better than Hocus Pocus that everybody
Ooh,
loves.
good. You're gonna get.
I know.
Don't let my wife hear that.
I know.
Yeah, just
I know.
just
There's women of a
bullet
certain
comes
age
in
will
from- Yeah.
will draw and quarter me for that. But it is. It has a similar atmosphere, but it's just like a more fun movie. It's just a better made movie.
Yeah.
And then he
And
started
some of like the incredible practicals that they had, like the
Yes.
monster, the big troll,
The
and just
9
that stuff
noses
hits
and- yeah.
so hard.
Yeah, it's great. And then he kind of, the budget started getting cut. And you got like Ernest Goes to Africa, Ernest Goes to Jail. Like they got pretty bad after that. But,
Ernest Goes to Rehab.
yeah,
We've
Ernest
seen them
Goes
all.
to
Yeah,
Rehab. It's it was diminishing returns. But Ernest Scared Stupid's great.
That's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my week. That's pretty. I tried to keep it a little fun outside of like, hey man, stop watching basketball all week, which is funny because that's all I do now. I still like. People are like, have you seen this? I'm like, I did not. I watched the Mavericks play the Bucks. I'm sorry.
Do you ever go back and watch old games, or is it all just like new stuff?
No, not really games. And to get even more nerdy about it, I go back and watch old Formula One races.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like Formula One racing. I'm a huge F1 fan. And so on Sunday mornings, I'm waking up anywhere between 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. because depending on where the race is in the world to watch the race. And then if it's an off week or if it's off season, which the off season for Formula One's only 3 months less than, it's I just go back and watch old races. So
Have you ever done that kind of racing?
No, never F1. Like that's super. It's too dangerous. I've done a lot of like karting where you just do like high speed go-karts, but nothing on the level of, I've never even been, my buddy does like, kind of amateur car racing. It's just kind of like rich guy stuff. It's motorsport generally is either you're just a rich guy trying to live out a fantasy or you are an actual rich guy laundering money.
Yeah.
That's mostly what they're doing.
Or you're out of your
And so-
mind.
yeah, exactly. Like truly, it's, somehow you fell into business with the Saudis and now you own a Formula One team.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. They're all just like billionaire boy princes. It's pretty gross at a lot of levels, but it's all drama.
Hey,
I like
you like
watching
what
it.
you like, you
so-
know.
yeah, exactly.
Well, Jeff, to wrap up here, as you know, TV Guide is not just informative, it has opinions, and it cheers and it jeers. So to wrap up here, I'd like to read you the cheers and jeers of this week, November 2nd to the 8th, 1996. See if you agree or disagree. I always love these because TV Guide gets super bitchy here. This section of TV Guide is unsigned, so we don't know who's writing this, and they know
funny.
it. So this is an unusually cheer-heavy week, so this is pretty
I was
positive.
going to say, is that usual that they only have one jeer?
No, it's usually split pretty evenly, or if it airs on one side, it's usually Jeers. So this is a big moment here. We start with a cheers. Cheers to tickling the funny bone in TV hospitals. Once again, CBS's Chicago Hope surprised its Monday night audience with a comic send-up of its NBC Thursday night counterpart, the medical hit ER. In the most recent, cut to a quick, a commercial created to promote Chicago Hope's medical team turned out to be a near frame-for-frame quote of the familiar ER title sequence, right down to the typographically imitative CH. It looks familiar, said a nun to impress Hope staff. We barely heard their dismissive comments. We were laughing so hard. That's awesome. I don't remember that, but that's great.
That's very funny.
And
I love that.
Font joke.
Yeah, I was going to say, in line with our typography conversations. That's amazing.
Cheers to David Hyde Pierce and his virtuoso versatility. To anyone who's thought he was Frasier's Niles and no more, his recent turn on Caroline in the City, there's a show no one loved, must have been an eye-opener. Playing an IRS agent with aspirations to appear in Cats. Check for the repeat, it all makes sense, really. Pierce gave the often underachieving Caroline a much-needed hit of top-rate talent. Oh, that's a backhanded compliment.
Brutal.
And while skewering Cats schmaltz, it's about as tough as shooting fish in a barrel. There's no denying the genius at work in the scene where Pierce conducts an audit while licking his paws. I don't want to see that.
I like that was under Cheers, but then they're also like, but we're going to throw in a couple jabs. We're going to get a couple.
Always do. Gave the oft underachieving Caroline a much needed hit of top rate talent. What a bitchy comment.
Sassy, too sassy.
Ooh, I mean, they're not wrong. Cheers to network executives for pulling punches in favor of more peaceable fare. TV violence is on the wane. The recently released UCLA report, sponsored by ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, compiled data from 114 series as well as made-for-TV movies and kids shows from the 1995-1996 season. While violence continues to be heavy in promotional spots for theatrical movies, and the network's original show's material didn't score too badly. Hey, by the time that V-chip comes along, there may be less V to chip away at.
Boy, were they wrong.
Did anyone use the V-chip? Do you remember that?
I have no idea what that is.
So it was this thing they talked about for years that they were going to install in all TVs, and it was a thing that programming with violence would be tagged some way so parents could turn the V-chip on and kids wouldn't be able to see any of those shows. And it came out like 8 years later than it probably needed to, like literally like 1998 or something. And no one even knew it was on TVs. I can't imagine anybody used it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did it work? Like what?
I don't know. I've never met anyone whose household used the V-chip, but it got talked about for almost 20 years. And I always wonder if it was just like a straw man's not the right word, but like the industry being like, we're working on this V-chip, and then I know it's violent, but the V-chip's coming. Yeah.
Just hang in there, youth groups. It'll be fine. We're on our way.
Although they did have, to this day, they sell stuff like that'll cut swears out of shows and stuff like that, and it uses the closed captioning to do it.
Yep. My brother-in-law told me a wild story. He grew up pretty religious, and his dad would take VHS tapes and hand edit them and take out scenes from whatever was, potentially offensive or controversial. So he had, talk about blind spots, he would watch movies and be like, rewatch movies later in life and be like, what is this whole scene that I didn't realize was in the movie? Because his dad would go and hand cut them out. I was like, dude, that's wild.
What if he found out later that his dad wasn't cutting them out for his benefit, but his dad was making highlight reels for himself, and that was just a
even better?
Yeah,
you just got the cutting room floor. He's like, oh no, I'm making like a super cut over here.
The best
just
shit,
car
man.
wrecks. And people yelling aggressive language.
You should see these tapes, man. I marathon them all night.
Yeah.
Then we have our only Jeers. Jeers to Ken Dolan, the obnoxious half of the personal finance team on the CBS show This Morning, and real life husband to Daria, the much belittled other half. In appearance after appearance, smug Ken treats informative Daria like so much devalued currency. She's a saint, doling out the money counsel when he tries to hog the spotlight. It might be a Spitler. With there, Daria smirks. Love is strange, but at least from the way Ken treats Daria on TV, this union redefines junk bond.
Dude, just Daria's relationship catching strays in the Jeers section.
And this is so clearly some guy who's like, I would treat her like a princess. She's my ultimate woman. Like,
I know finance way better than Ken.
dump that Ken and get with me. Like, she'll read this Jeer and write to TV God, you must tell me who wrote this.
Yeah, this is the only one that has a credit, and it's like, call me.
Yeah. His credit's just his phone number.
It's like, weird.
And cheers to postseason baseball coverage that's been in a league of its own. We're calling it a tie. Both NBC with play-by-play man Bob Costas and Fox with Joe Buck turned in sparkling performances. Of special note, NBC's Joe Morgan and Fox's Bob Brenly delivered all-star analysis. Each network had many moments of humor and insight, and the on-screen infographics, especially the more detailed box on Fox, were welcome. A fine baseball season on the field and on TV. Oh, fuck off. That's such
Dude,
a
all this
PR.
all this screams of is please give us more advertising money. Like
Yes.
that's all it screams.
That's not even a stip. They're just like, cheers to all these guys. They're great. They're all great. Everyone did a great job.
Everyone's doing great. By the way, Ken still sucks, but everyone doing a great job who sends us money.
I just imagine this guy, like, his friends get phone calls during CBS This Morning, and he's like, can you believe what Ken just said to Daria about bonds?
He's such
And they're
a
like,
loser.
what are you talking about?
Yeah. What are you typing in the background so furiously? Nothing, dude.
Who even knows who the finance people on CBS This Morning are?
The obnoxious half of the personal finance team on CBS is so funny. That's such a wild way to start.
What's their last name? I have a semi-enforced rule of not looking things up, but I want to see if they got divorced.
Dolan. Ken Dolan and
Dolan.
Dolan, yeah. Ken Dolan and Daria.
Let's see. The Dolans. The Dolans, consisting of Ken and Daria Dolan, were an American double act.
Were murdered in cold blood by a journalist from
each other.
TV Guide.
Let's see. Ken died in 2018. Yeah, well, he deserved it. Fuck
Rest
you,
in
buddy.
peace, Ken, yeah.
And Daria Dolan was the president of the stock exchange. Wow, they were married for 46 years.
Oh, wow. No,
she's-
no jeer could tear them apart.
Good news for that author. She's still alive, and Ken died in 2018.
Let's go, dude.
She is single. My God. Well, thank you so much for doing this. It's been great talking to you, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Dude, this was awesome. I appreciate it. Sorry I don't have the plethora, the depth of pop culture knowledge, but it was very, very fun. And,
You have marketable skills, and people like you.
hey, we're trying.
That's
we're
the
all
trade-off.
trying. Yeah, we're trying.
Jokes with a G, Geoff Tice's new comedy album. Buy it, listen to it, check him out if he comes to your town, see him live, look at his graphic design. His website's really cool. I put a link in the show description here. And next week I'll be here again. I hope you will too, for a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
It's like, hey, stop being so horny in the TV guide, folks.